All right, folks, so let's get started. It is 10 o'clock Mountain Time, noon Eastern Standard Time, and I am joined by the amazing Meridith Elliott Powell. So what we wanted to do in the next 25 minutes or so is talk a little bit about how to not just survive, but also thrive on the other side of this global pandemic. Now, this is the topic of a new project, and the idea is how do you go from feeling like this poor tree, feeling, I know, such a sad tree, feeling scarce and barren and hopeless and helpless into a place where you can actually thrive. And what this whole pandemic has shown many of us is that for about the past 12 years, we were doing okay. We were kind of coasting. We're doing all right because with the economy growing as well as it was, we didn't have to work too hard in order to do pretty darn well. Now is a terrific time, though, to look at the fundamentals of our business, our practices, whatever it is we do. If we cut hair, if we teach school, if we work at a local store, whatever it is we do, how can we come out of this faster, better, stronger? So Meridith, one of the things people have been asking me about, and I think it's in the next slide, is, how do we intend to do that? Now you've got a, I just want that next slide. Meridith got excited. You and I started, when we met, we decided that we had enough of a similar background to see if we could work on some projects together. So folks, I just want to introduce my amazing friend, Meridith Elliott Powell. She has written a bunch of books. She's gotten a ton of awards for her books. She is a certified professional keynote speaker, a CSP. She is a master certified business strategist, and she's great at it. She and I have worked together on projects, and she is just so solid in how she approaches things, and her insights for businesses is so terrific. She was named one of the top 15 business growth experts to watch, as well as top 40 motivational sales speakers. We just did an event in February. It seems like February was a long time ago in Houston, and she just rocked it. People were saying it was the best speech they'd ever seen in their life. And then we did another event together in Kansas in December. And again, that seems like a long time ago. She's got a series of courses on LinkedIn. Meredith, do you want to talk about what those courses are?
Sure. It is everything from basically how to sell professional services to how to bring soft skills into the sales arena, how to lead your sales team, and how to lead in today's environment. I've got about 8 courses on there now. You just check out LinkedIn Learning, and it's a great time to be doing that.
For a lot of people, they didn't even know that LinkedIn had a learning component. So it's really good to remind people of that. And Meredith, you were also named the top leadership and sales trainer in the United States, which is a huge, huge accomplishment. So let's talk about why this new situation is different and what we're doing about that. So folks, just as an introduction, Meredith and I started working on a project together a couple of years ago, and the CEO we were working for said, it would be really helpful if you all would put this together in a book. So we did that. The book came out last month as a soft launch. It comes out full force this week. It's called Who Comes Next? Leadership Succession Planning Made Easy. And then we also took our top tools, the forms, the checklists, the templates that we use when we go into organizations, and we put that together in a tools library workbook. And that all of this is on Amazon. And in case you have to leave early, we just want to let you know that this week, because we're doing this huge launch, the book is on Amazon as a Kindle for 99 cents. 99 cents. So we're super excited to be able to get that into the hands of as many people as possible. So Mary, let's talk about why this time it's different. The current situation, folks, is different because you have to understand that 50% of the world's GDP is in lockdown. And by that, we mean things are not able to move. They're not able to be offloaded off ships. Really prosperous companies like H&M is asking to not pay rent for their retail stores. Factories are closed around the world. Borders are closed. This has disrupted not just commercial activity as we know it, being able to buy toilet paper, but think about your toilet paper situation. And all of a sudden you look in your closet or your bathroom and you see, gosh, I've only got enough toilet paper for another week or two. Now think about the fact that you might be a factory producing millions of dollars every single week in products. And all of a sudden you look at your resources and you say, we've only got enough stuff for another week or another couple days. So you might be producing, but where's it going to go after that? And here's part of the problem. Parts of the many ports are not able to offload ships because They don't have enough workers. They don't have protective gear. They're worried about touching things. They're worried about having to sanitize things. Things are just taking longer. So we've got food that is sitting on ships and on trucks that's not being offloaded. Certain trains are now being implemented to do this. We've got uneasy customer situations where people aren't sure about what's safe for them to use, whether or not they're going to be able to go back to work, send their kids back to school. Right now, the disrupted supply chains, like I'm talking about, has decreased sales and profits across the world, not just the United States, not just developed countries, but across the entire world right now. And of course, we're seeing increased unemployment in the United States. We saw over 10 million people file for unemployment. And right now we're looking at 28 million people unemployed just in the United States. That is a huge percentage, of course, of our workforce. And small businesses are being especially hit. So again, just a fun fact for everybody, because you know I love my numbers. On the 4th of March this year, it shows that we've got about 58.9 million, so about 59 million people who are employed by small businesses. And they're being hit especially hard. They represent 47.5% of the American workforce. And if they're being hit especially hard right now and they're not able to continue with paying their people, this is going to be very, very difficult. So this time is different. It's not just one country being affected by a specific incidence or a series of incidences. It is everybody. So what lessons are we learning right now that's going to help us? Well, a few lessons that we're figuring out. What is it going to take to survive and thrive in this new situation? First, we know that we have to adopt new technologies. We know that we're going to have to be sourcing and producing closer to home. We love the idea of globalization, but when supply chains are interrupted, we learn that we have to pull things back and make those supply chains shorter. And that means producing and sourcing closer to home. We're being less dependent on oligopolies. So an oligopoly, it's an economic term. You know I love my economic terms. An oligopoly means there's just a few producers producing the bulk of whatever is being produced in that industry. So for example, let's say cereal makers. The top cereal makers in the United States, Kellogg's, General Mills, and there's a third. So an oligopoly is just a few big firms that produce the bulk of what consumers buy. And we're going to see less dependence on oligopolies. We are learning that positive outcomes that we're having from this is that people are working together. Retail rivals might be cooperating to share trucks, to share shipping, to share supply chains. They're coming together for common goals and common goods. And the American economy, as we know, I think you can move forward, Mayor, is that we know that we've learned that we're only as strong as our weakest link, but our economy was so strong moving into this that in terms of having full orders, we had that. In terms of increased employment, we were at a record low of 3.6, 3.7% unemployment. So anybody who wanted a job mostly had a job. The new trade policies were working. And what this has done is it's taken a big old spotlight and put it on our business. We were doing okay, but we probably could be doing better. And there's times when we're doing okay because the economy was so strong, it was covering up some of those problems. It was masking some of those issues. And a lot of leaders were also doing okay, but not as well as they should be doing. So now is a good opportunity for us to be looking at what it is we can do to move forward. So Mayor, we know that this is a time of taking risks. And right now, the big question is, do we balance as much health and safety as possible with the market economy? What do we do? Because managing risk and reward and benefits and costs is always a business decision. And right now, it's also a federal and state decision. So right now, the firms that are going to suffer are those firms that don't have a whole lot of cash sitting around, because it's going to make it more difficult for them to find and source local supplies. Businesses without storefronts are suffering because it makes it harder for them to get the loans, and businesses who are suddenly without work, like restaurants and the dog salons. So I groomed my dog Abby this weekend, poor Abby, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. It was just about getting hair off the dog. And I groomed Bella a couple weeks ago, and I got her head really well, but her body is still really fluffy. So she really looks more like a sheep than a dog. It's pretty sad. And the man in my life says, why can't you just take him to the groomer? I looked at him, I said, because the groomers are all closed down, just like hair salons and your haircut place, everything is closed down. So who survives this well? And this is what we're going to be talking about. It's those smaller firms that right now seem most at risk, but it's going to be those firms who are adaptable, those firms who are in solid industries and firm businesses with firm foundations, as well as organizations that can respond quickly to the changing needs, not only of their customers, but also as the marketplace progresses, we're going to see new needs moving forward. So right now, for the economy to bounce back, we need people to get back to work, but we also need people to feel safe moving back to work. We need parents to feel as though their children are safe going back to school. And moving forward, we've got to figure out how we continue to live with this virus, as well as every other disease out there that is causing people to get sick. People get sick all the time, and how we balance this with our economy. So right now, we know that businesses that are going to do well are going to be those that are innovative, adaptable. They're going to be able to make rapid decisions and be very creative. So if your business takes months and months and months to make a small decision, it's going to be very hard for you to stay competitive. If you are not thinking of creative and innovative solutions, it's going to be very, very difficult. And we have to adapt to the new reality. So very quickly, and we're calling this the evolution economy. And what that means is that we are going to have to be quicker and faster to get things going. And that means being more responsive to changing needs, as I've said. So boards are also going to have to change how they do business. It means they're going to have to be looking forward. They're going to be hiring people for the future, not just now. And Meridith, we mentioned this in the book. Do you want to jump on in on that?
Yeah, it's that the the boards are really going to need to evolve. We talk a lot about the role of boards as it relates to succession planning, in the sense that they need to start to see it as an integral part of the business plan. It's something that they need to take a role in. They need to be conscious of how often CEOs move positions, and that boards need to push the CEO to have succession planning throughout the organization at every single level.
I think that's exactly right. And folks, we have to remember also that during the last recession, during the last two recessions, we saw a default and bankruptcy of about 10% of firms worldwide. And part of the reason for that was they needed strong leadership in the right place at the right time, and able to do the right thing in order to move forward. So we know, Meridith, that we have to assess our long-term strategy as a board. We have to implement our technology quicker, source and produce closer to home, and simplify and automate everything we possibly can. So how leadership needs to change in this new world, they've got to be thinking more strategic. And it's hard for people who were brought in a place where status quo was okay and leadership as it was fine, and move forward. So right now we want to remind people that there are things we can do as leaders at the local levels wherever we are. And that, first off, is to reassure your customers that you are practicing safe practices. Like Ace Hardware, I found out, was passing out masks, not just as you came in the store, but they're also putting an extra mask in your bag when you left the store. We want our retailers and our storefronts to show us, don't just tell us. So I think more restaurants in the future are going to be opening up their kitchens, taking those walls out to show people how safely they are preparing food, because that's one of the hesitations some people have right now is, I'm not sure I want to go out to eat because I'm not sure what my restaurant is doing to be safely preparing my food. And we know that everybody is going to be more aware of cleaning. This is I saw a meme on this that said, we're all talking about flying cars in 2020, and instead we're focusing on washing our hands. We really thought we'd be a little bit further on this. But right now we've seen casinos spraying down everything, separating machines. If you are in the cleaning business right now, wow, hang on, because we need you more than ever.
Oh, it's such a great segue, Mary, because what I love to listen to Dr. Mary Kelly is that you really get the visual and the reality. And it was I was doing a program earlier this morning about really what it takes to survive in this type of atmosphere. And what you come down to when you study people who get through struggle, it comes down to not necessarily being an optimist or a pessimist, but are you a realist? Do you understand the situation that you're dealing with? And because when you understand the reality, then you're in a position to really lead through it successfully. So I want to start to talk about really what you're going to gain from this webinar, what you're going to walk away with, and that's how to drive success through uncertainty. Believe it or not, you can actually emerge from this crisis incredibly successful. The history dictates it. The research shows that there are people and organizations who not only come through a crisis, but they emerge really successfully through it. And that is about leveraging this uncertainty and starting to really make it work for you. You've got to embrace reality. So much of what Mary just talked about. I love to say this. Think about this. Remember, we were all at New Year's Eve, and at New Year's Eve, we were, thinking about a new decade, bringing in the new year. We thought it was not only going to be the best year on record, but we were excited about the 2020s. And here we are, just past the end of the first quarter, and our whole world has flipped. It's not the same. So you can't be using the same strategies you kicked the year off with. This is happening so fast and moving so rapidly. It is hard for many of your team members to keep up or to handle it. People are going to adjust at very different levels. It's bigger than work. Get ready, put your seatbelt on, because you are leading people through life, not just through their job. And uncertainty has so much power. It makes most people stop like a deer in the headlights. And the truth is, you're leading people in a direction that is moving constantly. So all of that reality really puts you in a position to understand you've got to do some things differently. Now, I am assuming you already know how to lead through a crisis. You know, you got to help people with the fundamentals. You've got to build relationship and trust. You've got to over communicate, reward and recognize, be transparent, and you've got to engage the team. Those are the basics. But anytime Mary Kelly puts on a webinar, we are going beyond the basics. That's what you've got to do to get your team to limp through the crisis. We're going to talk now about how you get them to move through it and beyond it and position for you for success when this thing turns around. Because it may not seem like it now, but this thing will turn around and you want to emerge successful. So how do you lead successfully through uncertain times? Number one, you've got to redefine your role. There was a great article in 2011 in the Harvard Business Review about, was there a difference between a wartime and a peacetime leader? And it argued whether you could be both. I tend to think that you can be both, but you need to be conscious of the fact that things are different. A peacetime leader is somebody who's leading through a good economy, and they can be focused. They have the luxury of being focused on growth, productivity, and expansion. But as a wartime leader, which is the leader we need in a time of crisis, you've got one shot. There's no room for error. So a peacetime leader can be focused on engagement, versus a wartime leader needs to be more of a dictator, more of because when you have a vision, when you tell people this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to succeed, that's what makes them feel safe. And it's about growth versus sustainability. As a wartime leader, you've got to sustain the business first before you can grow the business. So you've got to think about, what skills do you need as a wartime leader? Again, you probably weren't leading this way at the beginning of 2020. And for a wartime leader, it's about people, product, and profit in that order. If you're not taking care of your people, you can't even focus on product and profit. It's got to be that first. Ask what your teams needs. What are your skill gaps? Invest in your own growth and development. You've got to be building your skills right now if you're going to be successful. And then you've got to lead at each phase of this crisis. And there are going to be different phases of this crisis. There's going to be 3 phases that you have got to lead through. Phase 1, it's the phase we're in right now. You're just adjusting to the crisis. Everybody's getting everybody home, making sure they have enough equipment, and everybody's either getting their loan, hoping they'll get their loan, or still applying to get their loan. Phase 2, I hope we move into pretty soon. Some states have started to move into it. Some countries have started to move into it. But you're growing in the crisis. You're reopening for business. And then phase 3 is growing after the crisis. And you are going to need to lead through all of these phases, and you're going to need to lead through those, those successfully. In the first one, you've got to sustain, stabilize, and support. I see, Rochelle, that you said it took you 2 weeks to adjust to the crisis in New York City. I love that you said that, because people are really adjusting at different stages, and you've got to allow people to do that, as well as the fact that if people are stuck, you've got to move them through. But you can't grow in the new normal if you haven't stabilized the business in phase one. In the new workplace, you're going to grow in a false normal. We're all going to be figuring out how to do business in an environment that probably won't stay long term. And then phase three, you've got to evolve to a new way of doing business. Now, I want to walk you through the strategies and steps about how you need to really lead through each phase of those crises and what you need to be doing to really emerge successfully. So once you've redefined your role, you've got to realize that collaboration is the new competitive advantage. And you heard Mary say the collaboration is key. We are seeing this in every aspect of our world right now. We're watching countries work together, companies work together, people and communities work together. It's the same way inside our own businesses. I don't care if you're a solopreneur or you're running a massive company, you've got to get people working together, and you need to work together. Collaboration is bigger than one person. You've got to expand your own reputation as somebody who is really reaching out and wants to collaborate. Don't wait on people to collaborate with you, but go to the right people. I love this picture here to your left that I showed you just a moment ago, because it really emphasizes the point of the fact that you've got to ask the best question. Collaboration is not about asking people what you should be doing. It's about defining the question and then getting people to agree on the solutions. Imagine this. If Winston Churchill had said, "What do you think that we ought to do about the Nazis?" I wonder if Stalin and Roosevelt and Churchill ever could have worked together. No, what Churchill did was he said, the question is, how do we defeat the Nazis? And these three leaders came together to find the solution. People collaborate based on a solution, not based on a question. So you define the question, work with people to get the solutions, and from there you will get the strategy. So you've got to think about, what are you doing to build your reputation? Who are the people that you want to be collaborating with? What qualities and skills do they have? And what questions should you be asking? I've got a CEO right now who, in her company, she's asking, what do we need to be doing to get back to work? What will our new normal be? Where do you see the organization 5 years from now? She's giving those questions to her team and then getting people to collaborate to find the answers. They're getting ahead of the changes coming. That's how you emerge successful through the crisis. It's not enough to be asking the questions, how are you doing business now? You need to be asking the questions, how are you going to be doing business down the road? You've got to be balancing the current state with the future state. You've got to be stabilizing your business, but you've got to have a vision for your future. Where do you see things 3 and 5 years right now? And how are you combining people around a shared purpose? Question relevancy of everything that you're doing. I know Mary and I have been doing this so much now. So much of our content, it's not relevant anymore. Maybe it'll come back in 3 to 5 years, but you've got to let go of ego as to the products and services that you're selling and what you're doing, because they may not be relevant now. You've got to continually think and integrate the future state. You've got to condition yourself and your team for change. The more you talk about change, the more you envision change, the more you anticipate change, the more comfortable you will be with change. Here's a tool that I encourage my clients, and I certainly use in my business. I used to use it every quarter. Now I use it every month. But to just brainstorm these ideas of society, competition, economy, industry, technology, customers, and politics. What are the changes that you see happening outside of your organization? And what do you need to be doing now to anticipate those changes? What do you need to be focused on? Because the truth is, the majority of things that can impact your success after this crisis are outside of your control. If you see change coming, it's your greatest opportunity. Ignore it, and it will bury you. You've got to increase the pace at which you move. You've got to develop agile teams that are working on the priorities of the things that are going to impact your business. You've got to really determine what those priorities are. I've talked to so many people right now who are busy, but they're not productive. And keeping up with the pace of change is about getting your business productive. What matters? What do you need to be doing that's going to generate revenue or move your company forward or solve problems for your customers? And then you've got to allow people the time to work on those problems. You know, we used to create task force and give people a week, a month to work on them, or a day a month when they would meet. No, scratch the schedule. Give people the month of April to work on the most pressing issues, because you've got to keep up with that pace. You've got to be moving faster than the uncertainty is coming. So here's a challenge. Think of one thing that you've got to be working on, and then build a team to work on it. I know Mary and I are in a mastermind where we're doing exactly that. We've got a problem. This is the issue of what the business has got to work on. And we're really carving out time every single week to really work and prioritize that on top of everything else we've got to do. So clarify the issue. Know the biggest priorities in the business and be productive. Forget about the rest. And number 5, leverage the uncertainty. I've got to say, this is my business. Uncertainty can work for you, but if you understand the reality, what impact it's having, and then find the opportunity. I've got the CEO of a tech company right now who was facing losing a third of their clients. And they also had the problem with the fact that they've been trying for years to get their clients to pay ACH. They combined those two things and offered those third that were going to drop. They said, if you stay on, we'll give you 2 free months, but only if you pay ACH. They only lost 10% of that third of their customers, and 90% of their customers right now are on ACH. They found the opportunity in the uncertainty. So there you go. You've got to redefine your role, create collaboration, balance current and future, increase your pace by setting priorities, and find the opportunity in the uncertainty. I just want to stress, this is not about surviving through this. This is about emerging successful. And you've got to really think about what you're doing to prepare now for life after this crisis. Because if you do, you're gonna emerge successful from it. So that was rapid fire.
it was. So a couple of things you and I have talked about before is that many people, they really struggle with change. You know, the habenula of our brain just pushes back against change, which is why for so many people, this whole crisis, it was just hard to imagine and hard to really wrap your head around. And what I try to tell people is that's totally normal. But you and I have both said, if you can't change it, we got to embrace it.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important, you know, to condition yourself and your team for change. If you talk about change, you'll get used to change. You'll start to see the things that are coming, and you'll start to see there is a positive and an opportunity. I know the organizations that I have worked with, they certainly didn't see the pandemic coming, but because we had been conditioning the team for change, they were able to pivot faster.
That's right. And I think that pivot idea is so, so important. You know, as first responders, they know that they have to respond to different crisis situations all the time. And they've done really well, but even they have sort of struggled with just the bigness of all of this. So for many of my more local businesses, my 18 to 20 to $80 million groups, you know, they're really struggling with how do we get our people to think about that next stage? What do you think they should tell them?
I think the thing is that it's twofold, and that is that really do think about what you need to do to sustain the business. I've got a client that I'm working with that has a brick and mortar business that has evaporated. Right. So what we did was they're creating something that they can sell out of their home just to pay the bills. So once paying the bills was solved, they relaxed. And then we could start to say, okay, what's this going to look like? How are your customers going to change? How's competition going to be different? Where's the opportunity? But I think we're in a Maslow's hierarchy of need. I mean, we have to be able to eat and pay our bills first. Get that settled, but let go of ego. You know what? You may have to put a bunch of stuff in your house on eBay. and sell some stuff that you never wanted anyhow, but that pays the bills. And then it opens you up. But I cannot stress enough, and Mary, I know you agree with me, you have to start thinking about the opportunity now, because you can't wait until the economy turns back on. If you're not at the end of the runway, you're behind.
That's exactly right. And I tell people you can swim with the tide, you can float with the tide, or you can swim against the tide. And this is where I still see a lot of people really swimming against the tide, because they keep saying, well, when things get back to normal. And I'm like, there is not going to be a normal. Whatever you had 3 months ago, that's gone. That reality is gone. I mean, this is a shift that I think is on par with the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the technological evolution. This is a whole different set of ground rules, a different game, a different playing field. Things are going to change. And exactly what you said, that what is no longer relevant is no longer relevant. And we've got to get rid of those things, because I think a lot of that mindset of longing for 3 months ago and really nostalgic for 3 months ago, which seems a little bit silly because it's not that long ago, but people are saying, well, you know, we're going to go back to it. No, we're not. We are going to have to change how we move forward.
You know, when I've been researching a new book that is coming out in the fall, but one of the fascinating things was I found companies that have been around since the mercantile age, which means they went through the industrial age, the agricultural age, I mean, all that. One of the biggest things is, Mary, exactly what you just said, is that they let go of what wasn't relevant. Every single one of those companies is still in business, but they are not still selling what they sold in the mercantile age. And I think that's really big for us. We've really got to ask ourselves, is what we're doing relevant? And if it isn't, get your ego out of the way and let it go.
Right. And I think that's one of the big issues that people can ask themselves. Again, that list that you created about societal changes, industry changes, economic changes, political changes, you know, look at the things and identify in each of those categories, what's really important to you? What are your personal top priorities? What are your values associated with those? And then focus on those things that are most important to you and really let go of the things that are not. And this is where people sometimes got really wrapped around the axle about little bitty tiny details. I'm like, people, let it go. That is not going to matter. You know, things that you cared about 3 months ago do not matter right now. And some people have been very, very badly affected by this virus. And if you've got a family member or friends involved, I am so, so sorry. And this means that you are mostly focused right now against beating this common enemy, which is this virus. And then ideally, this brings us all together. So Mary, how do you see all of us more coming together, coming through this and coming out of this?
You know, I do go back to this. I love that Rochelle made up a word, collaborationship. I think that's how you pronounce it. I love it. I don't care that it's not a word. I think you should use it. I think the biggest thing is don't wait on, I do think that we are coming together. My hope is that it's going to break down a lot of walls and people see that the only way to be successful is to work together. But I don't think you can wait on other people to work with you. You have to reach out, especially if you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, whatever the title is. Look for people to collaborate. If you're a leader in a company and you have team members, then build those cross-functional teams. Get them working together and get them collaborating. And then look beyond your walls and really ask yourself, who else do I need to be working with?
That's exactly right. And you and I have talked about this before, that now is a great time for businesses who see growth in the next 3 to 6 months. I know it's hard to think about that, but some organizations are having to lay off people. And guess what? Those are people you might be able to use in your organization. So make sure you are looking for talent all the time. That's a leader's job. Make sure that you continue to develop your own leadership skills, as well as training your people to respond appropriately and help them get through that by giving them not just training, but smaller and actionable tasks so that they feel as though they've got a sense of accomplishment, and making sure that you've got a long-term strategic plan that is based on this new reality.
Yeah, I also want to add that, when you think about vision, think big, whether you're in business for yourself or your company, because the beautiful thing about crisis, there are a couple of things of struggle and crisis, but it creates a new set point, a new belief of what you can push through and what you can accomplish. And when we come out the other side of this, your team's their personal confidence and their belief in what they can do and create is going to be huge. And you want to make sure you're in a position to really capitalize on that.
Mary, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it does come down to leadership, which I think is our next slide. That it's your job as a leader to help your people through this and to create what's going to happen in the future. You know, a lot of people I think are waiting to have other people tell them what to do, and they're waiting on when it's okay to go outside, and they're waiting for other people to tell them. But your job as a leader is to make those hard decisions. And that can be what's going to happen next. It's got to be how you create this vision for your people. It's motivating your people to stay focused when they're working from home, and maybe they've got kids, and maybe there's construction going on outside, and maybe they're losing their power, and all these other things that are happening. Your job is to help people realize their purpose, their place in the world, their contributions, communicate the message over and over and over, more than you think people do, while maintaining that sense of ethical accountability and responsibility to both the organization, your people, and your community, and doing this with a shared sense of purpose and integrity moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I think vision and purpose are so important. I think we have to have that for ourselves. And I think that, you know, I think the big thing with that is that you've got to be okay with the fact that the strategies that you pick may not be perfect. You'll make mistakes, but if you stay connected to the purpose and the vision, people will stay with you. And for your own business, you'll wind up in the right place.
That's awesome. Mary, let's go ahead and wrap this up, because I think we're a little bit at 35 minutes. We know that we can just move forward. That right now our job as leaders is to push people through this time. And certainly that is what the new book is about. And you can just move forward and talk about that new book.
Yeah, so this is our new book. As we said, it is on Kindle today. Please go get it. Going to be there. How long is it going to be free, Mary?
Till the end of April. So they've got just about another 9 days to get this as a 99-cent Kindle book.
Yeah, 99. That's right. It's 99 cents. I keep saying it's free because 99 cents doesn't seem like very much. But there is a bonus right now. You're going to get the book on Amazon. If you email the receipt to info@Productive Leaders, you'll get the tools workbook for just for free, which is, everybody who has bought it has said that the tools is honestly one of the best parts of the book, because we just lay out everything you need to do to really create your own succession plan.
And for some people who are thinking about the succession plan and they're thinking, wow, now is kind of a good downtime to figure out my strategic plan, which includes my succession plan going forward. Mary, you put together a course on this.
Yeah, we've got an online course available on how to do it. We've got an online course complete with a mastermind to go with it, as well as Mary and I also do full on consulting and live events for this.
Which is awesome. We love working together, as
Yes,
you probably tell. And it's just wonderful to work with somebody smart and hardworking and dedicated to our clients' needs. So Meredith, thanks for being my partner in so many of these projects. And folks, we will be sending this out to you, the recording, as well as some of the handouts and the PowerPoint, so that you can reference back to this. Thank you so much again for joining us today. We are grateful, grateful, grateful for your time, your gift of time to us. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.